Outsourcing tends to have a bad reputation as being low quality. Partner Hero's value-based approach raises the bar for the outsourcing industry by investing in employee empowerment and career growth, paying above-market salaries, and maintaining a focus on quality and performance. They're more than a service provider. They're also a thought partner for the startups they serve. It's simple. Brands that care about quality customer experience choose Partner Hero. They offer flexible terms and the ability to scale quickly, perfect for startups, with quality assurance baked into every program and offices around the world. So Partner Hero can provide truly global coverage. Outsourcing has long been available mainly to big businesses, but Partner Hero is challenging business as usual by bringing the benefits of outsourcing to businesses of all sizes with short, flexible contracts and fast ramp-up times. 10 years ago, when we were launching the Action Catalyst, we could have used a few extra hands to help us scale quickly, even if it was just for a short while. You can bet that with their expertise, fast onboarding, and core focus on quality, Partner Hero would have had our attention. If you're ready to bring in outside customer support help for your startup that feels like it's a part of an existing team, check out Partner Hero. Head over to partnerhero.com/Action Catalyst to book a free consultation with our solutions team. Mention you heard about Partner Hero from the Action Catalyst, and they'll even waive the setup fee. Now, on to the show.
Southwestern Family of Companies welcomes you to the Action Catalyst. Each week, our diversely and amazingly accomplished guests share their insights and inspirations to help us ignite our own. So let's invest attention together to breathe, to reflect and refocus, and decisively defeat that voice we call Mr. Mediocrity. Then let's enjoy moving forward to make a positive difference in our world.
Are you interested in advertising with the Action Catalyst? Our listeners could be hearing about your brand right here, right now. For details, shoot us an email at info@theactioncatalyst.com.
Well, welcome to the Action Catalyst. This is Dan Moore, and I am so delighted today that we're going to be spending some time with Andy Andrews. Now, you're going to recognize him most likely for more than 200 appearances on national television. My guess is you're going to recognize his voice. He's done over 1,000 radio interviews. And if you spend any time at all listening to Sirius XM's comedy channels, you'll find that portions of his speeches have been excerpted there multiple times. They play every single day. And he's not a comedian. At least he says he's not. He is a prolific author, having written 25 books so far, translated into more than 40 languages. And among those are several New York Times bestsellers and modern classics. It's absolutely the right word. The Traveler's Gift, one of the most incredibly impactful books that I've personally read, as well as The Noticer, about a person named Jones who has a big impact on the lives of people that he's there with. The Traveler's Gift was named on ABC's Good Morning America as one of the 5 books you must read in your lifetime. So if you're where you can take notes, or if you're not, remember this: Andy Andrews, The Traveler's Gift. I agree with that assessment. He's been to the White House on several occasions, and 4 different presidents have requested that he speak, and he has done so. He's also coached our nation's Special Operations Command for 8 years, and in addition, been part of 9 college football championship teams in a row. He's been a consultant to Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, and sometimes even entire communities who hire him to create a starting point for extraordinary results. There's a new book coming out in June. It's called The Bottom of the Pool, about thinking beyond our boundaries to achieve extraordinary results. And I love the quotation that one of the New York Times reporters said about you, Andy. Andy Andrews has quietly become one of the most influential people in America. So, Andy, welcome to the Action Catalyst.
Buddy, thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I am honored to be here with you.
Well, we are just delighted. Now, today, when we hear these tremendous accomplishments, the many places you've been all over the world, advisors to top people in every regard, it's probably difficult to realize that it wasn't always that way.
Yeah, it's, just sitting here and listening to you say that stuff's kind of hard. One of the things I think I want to get my wife and go, listen to this, but it is, it's taken a long time. I can't help but think sometimes, people will come up to me and, after I speak or after they read a book, and they'll say, wow, I wish I'd have met you 30 years ago. And I'm like, no, you didn't want to meet me 30 years ago. I couldn't have helped you at all. So it's taken a long time, and I'm still on a journey of learning and seeking wisdom. And and really thrilled to be here with you. Your background and leading you to Southwestern, and then you being there as long. Boy, that speaks so much to you and to Southwestern, and so very honored to be here with you.
Well, we're privileged to be in a position of building character in young people for a very, very long time, and it is a great honor. But I wonder if you wouldn't mind carrying us back. I know when you were 19, you had almost consecutive crippling blows that hit you in your personal life, and sort of what happened and how you responded after that.
Well, I was 19, and my mom and my dad died in the same year. My mom of cancer. My dad was killed in a car accident, which, same year. That was a crazy time, as you can imagine. But I've always had the ability to take a bad situation and make it worse. And I did. I made some bad choices during the time, and none of them really what you would look at and go, oh, disastrous, or there was no pathological thing. There's no, addictions or anything like that. I just made little bitty kind of bad choices, probably, more financially than anything, and ended up literally homeless before that was even a word. 35 years ago, nobody was talking about homeless people, but there wasn't a term anybody used, but I was living on the beach and sleeping under a pier and in and out of people's garages, which is not safe or smart, but I did. And, that was a crazy time.
Mm-hmm. What were the steps you took to sort of pull gradually, because I know it doesn't happen instantaneously, out of that mode, mentally as well as actions that you took? Because the brain is the start of it all.
Yeah, I met this guy, an old man. You mentioned him earlier, an old man named Jones, and we didn't really know where he was from. We knew he was in and out of town, but we didn't know where he stayed when he was in town. Didn't know where he went when he was out of town. Didn't know how old he was. He was one of these kind of guys you look at and goes, he 80 or 180? We weren't really sure. And didn't know what was in the suitcase he carried around. But he was the first guy ever to tell me the truth about myself. And, when I say that, Dan, when you meet somebody who's having a hard time, what do? We give them $5 or we put them on the prayer list at church, but rarely do we tell them things about themselves that might make them angry at us. And that's what he did. People say, so he made you mad? Oh, yeah, all the time. But where am I going? I'm living under a pier. But, he created a thought process in me that lasts until this day. And, I was 22, 23 years old. And I don't know what you were like when you were 22 or 23, but I knew everything. I would interrupt him and I say, let me tell you what I think. And he'd talk and I say, okay, but I've been thinking. And he'd talk and I'd say, okay, but one thing you need to think. And one day he said, that's kind of dangerous. You need to be careful with that. And I said, what? He said, that thinking thing. He said, a lot of people live their entire lives and never figure out that you can't always believe everything you think. And that really stuck with me. It probably took 20 or 30 years to unpack it, but it stuck with me that a lot of the things that I thought, or a lot of things that I believed, there was more to it. And he started me reading biographies, gave me 3 biographies. It was Winston Churchill, George Washington Carver, and Will Rogers. And I had never really liked biographies because they made me read them in school, I guess. And I was always kind of a Sports Illustrated person. But I remember that night, I knew they were biographies because that's all it had on the spine was their name, and I said, biographies? And he said, no, these are adventure stories. These are mysteries and romances and thrillers, and they're true. And I remember later reading the Winston Churchill one, And I wasn't even really intending to read it, Dan. I was kind of getting into it just so that because I knew he would say something, so I could say, yeah, I'm reading Churchill. Um, but I remember reading right at the very first that he met some little girl, and it said that one day she was to become his wife. And I remember thinking, well, there's the romance. And then, every chapter would end with, and if he had only not gone through the door, Winston would have never. And I remember thinking, well, there's the mystery, and then the World War II stuff started, and there's the thriller. But I got hooked on these books, and I knew that I was thinking that way because he had put that, in my mind, that adventure, romance, thriller. But I understood that I was still thinking that way. It still pushed me into that. And so I ended up reading over 200 biographies, from somebody who wasn't interested in them at all to somebody who was fascinated by these lives. And I began to ask, is there something somebody can do? I mean, were these people just born this way? Because I knew if they were born this way, that I was just out of luck. But was there something they could do? And, what did they do? And how long did it take them to do it? And so, I eventually came to understand 7 different principles that were apparent in these people's lives. And those eventually became the 7 decisions in The Traveler's Gift, which, as you know, is a story about a guy going through a tough time, and the dad gets to travel through time, meeting with 7 historical figures who are going through a tough time in their own life. Gets to be with Anne Frank in the annex, and with Truman while he's determining what to do to end the war. And so each of these 7 people give him a different principle that if he puts it in his life, things will change. And that's the story of The Traveler's Gift. But those 7 principles came as a result of me living under a pier.
Wow. And you were able to take that push that you got from Jones with the questions that he would ask you and the way he would confront your own thinking when it wasn't right, and take advantage of that. And that first 3 biographies led to 200. So sometimes taking the right step gives us momentum.
It does, and it gives us a desire, and that momentum is so important because, we've heard about football teams or basketball teams, wow, they've got the momentum. And, in our personal lives, we need momentum too, because momentum actually, it allows you to perform better than you really are. When you have momentum, you actually perform better and produce results that are better than you really are. But when you lack momentum, you perform a little lower than what you really are.
Mm-hmm. Now, along the way, you must have had times when you lost your momentum, when you hit a brick wall or are blindsided by something in your business, or as you grew, somebody disappointed you or somebody didn't come through with a promise or a commitment. What did you do when you hit these brick walls, Andy? Because all of us do.
And that has been, that wasn't just then, as you know, that's a constant. I really have come to understand that we're all either in a crisis, coming out of a crisis, or headed for a crisis. That's part of being with us on this planet. And I was talking to somebody the other day that that said, that they were going through the worst time in their life. And I said, well, I think I have done that too. I think I have. I said, we won't really know until I'm gone. I said, but I think I have gone through the worst time of my life. I said, one thing you can be certain of is that everybody has one.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at a life and examine it from birth to death, we could all go, okay, there it was. There was the worst time. And one of the things that you ask, what do I do when I have these things happen or I go in these crisis modes? There are 2 things. One thing I do and one thing that I remember. The thing that I do is something.
Something.
Yeah. People ask when they get in these tough situations, they go, what do I do now? What do I do? And most people, when they don't know what to do, don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is always something. Now, you can take it from there. You can't do everything right now, but you can do something right now. And if you're looking for answers, ask good questions, okay? Because the quality of your answers will be determined by the quality of your questions. If you are asking bad questions, you're going to get bad answers. And I'm not necessarily talking about when we're seeking wisdom from somebody else. I'm talking about these things that we say to ourselves during these times. And I'll tell you, it's curious that we talked about the traveler's gift, because that was the period of time in my life that I actually learned this lesson. Because a lot of people don't know this. And I'll tell you something about the traveler's gift before I tell you this, is that the traveler's gift, it's sold over 1 million copies in the United States, millions around the world. It's still the second best-selling book in the history of South Korea. and the answer is Harry Potter, if you want to know. I tell you this not to brag about the book. I tell you this because the little secret about the book is 51 publishers turned this book down. Over a period of 3.5 years, 51 publishers said that what I had written was not worth putting on paper. And so when you think about the success that the book has had, and you think about 51 experts and all that time, but I look at this, Dan, and I realize I probably extended the period of time that I had to wait on this book by asking bad questions of myself. I would ask questions like, well, is this book just not as good as you think it is? And of course, my subconscious immediately, when you ask a question, whether it's good or bad, your subconscious immediately goes to work answering that question. And so I'm going, is this book not as good as I thought it was? And my subconscious immediately goes, well, you moron. Of course, it's not as good as you thought it was. If it was as good as you thought it was, somebody would have published it by now. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing all your friends by sending this out and saying you need to back up and reassess. I mean, that's what my subconscious is saying. And so that, I'm asking questions like, well, is this just not what God wants me to do? And, my subconscious is going, what do you want him? Come down and burn a bush for you? What do you want? You want him to come in and slap you around a little bit? Of course. This is, and my answers made me more tentative sending it out and less confident. And I think took the time. I finally asked a question out of frustration that was a good question. And the question I asked was, man, can you go around publishers? Is there anybody more powerful than a publisher? And just like that, I had the answer. It's like, yes, a publisher's wife. And literally a week after I got the manuscript in the hands of a publisher's wife, we had a deal on the book. And that was after 3.5 years. And so, when you are in a tough time, you got to remember to ask good questions, questions that will move you forward. The quality of your answers will be determined by the quality of your question. And the second thing I do is to remember that there is a proof of hope. Even in the worst time, not just an encouraging word about hope, but proof. And that is to remember that even in the worst time of your life, you're breathing, which means you're still here. And if you're still here, then you haven't accomplished what you were put here to accomplish. And if you haven't accomplished what you were put here to accomplish, that means your very purpose has not yet been fulfilled. If your very purpose hadn't been fulfilled, that means that the best part of your life is still ahead of you. The most rewarding part of your life, the most important part of your life is still ahead of you. There's more laughter to enjoy, more success to earn, more children to influence, more people to help. There is more. And there's proof of it just by the virtue of the fact that you sit here and breathe.
I am so already fired up by the things you're sharing, Andy. They're so right. I want to ask you one about when you take good questions. A prime example of a poor question would be, why is this happening to me?
Right.
Because the
Yeah,
subconscious mind will say, because you deserve it, you idiot. And then
that's
it
right. That's
gets
right.
in the
This is
negative
what
loop.
you get. Yeah. Yeah. Why is this happening to me? You know, it's just like, it's, why am I overweight? Why can't I ever lose weight? And you think about the answers your subconscious gives. Well, your mother was that way, and you have no discipline. But an example of taking that same question and turning it into something your subconscious can work on in a positive way is, how can I regain the shape I had 5 years ago or in college? How can I regain that shape and have fun doing it and not be hungry all the time? Okay, well, now let your subconscious work on that one.
Yeah, because it's a big problem solver if we put the right problems to it.
Exactly.
It goes to work. Along the way, Andy, with so many accolades, so much success, many people get a temptation to kind of coast a little bit. They just say, let this momentum just keep carrying me. There's a creature called Mr. Mediocrity that talks in people's ear. What do you do to slap down Mr. Mediocrity and not really listen to all the accolades and keep growing?
Well, whatever success that I have had, people sometimes say, well, what was your big break or whatever? And I've never really had one. It's been a slow, incremental process. And, honestly, I still feel a lot of the same feelings that I felt when I was on the pier. I'm still kind of nervous about tomorrow in a way. I mean, not about, I have certainty in what I'm doing, and I have certainty in where I'm going. But there is still this little voice in me that I have never even tried to banish that says, come on, get up, wake up, let's start running, let's go. You can't waste daylight. And so I've also watched the careers of some other people. And I remember one time I loved this book. This book was like a life changer for me. And so loving the book, I was very interested in the author. And so I bought the next book, and it just kind of, I thought it was kind of a rehash of the first book. And then I bought the next one, and I thought that was just, and I stopped getting them. And I've watched some people that have hit upon something and then stayed with it and quit learning. And I don't want to ever be that person that, I don't feel like an expert at stuff. I'm really still, I'm taking seriously the seeking wisdom thing. And, I'm still trying to understand. My prayer every day is God, help me to understand some things that you want people to understand. That if they did understand, they would live the lives that would be the best for them. And God, please give me simple ways to explain complicated things that are confusing people. And so I'm not, I don't, it's funny that I've had a hand in, football stuff, because I don't really know a whole lot about football. I mean, I'm a fan, but, I work with companies that I don't know tons about the industries, but I have learned some about people, and that's what I try. That's what I get after every day is an understanding and a way to explain things that confuse people. And usually the things that complicate our lives are ourselves.
Mm-hmm. We get in our own way. This is just so great. And the simplicity with which you share things. I'm just going to briefly go through the 7 principles in the Traveler's Gift. Be responsible and make a decision. You've done that. Seek wisdom. Listen to people that are there. You've done that. Be a person of action. Just as you say, every day it's time to get moving. Have a decided heart in the face of rejection. 51 publishers. You're twice as good as J.K. Rowling, who did Harry Potter. She was only rejected by 25. Choose to be happy. Perhaps one of the most encouraging one is forgive. Focus on anger resolution, not anger extension. Now, boy, our Lord, our world needs that today. And then persist without exception. You talk about biographies. I think these principles could be a biography of Andy Andrews.
Well, maybe one day I'll do one for my boys, but I don't. I really enjoy watching the lives of other people and being able to help where I can. I feel like I've been allowed to experience a lot of stuff. A lot of the tough things that happen in life, and I think I even look at the death of my parents, and even today when I run into somebody who has just lost somebody, I realize that I have experienced, there's only 2 ways that people generally experience the death of a friend or a family member. And that is kind of a long drawn out thing. And the other one is an immediate thing, and so I have experienced that long drawn out thing with my mom. My mom had 17 surgeries and it took years, and we all knew she was going to die, and everything was said. And then my father, it was a call in the middle of the night. And so I feel like I've been allowed to experience a lot of different things so that I can relate to a lot of different people. And, it's an odd thing, Dan, because I run into so many different people that have had so many different issues. And Jones told me one time, he said, it's not answers people need so much as perspective, because perspective about their situation brings calm, and calm leads to clear thinking. Clear thinking leads to ideas, and those ideas can lead to appropriate action. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to give perspective in situations.
Right. If we could ever just zoom the lens out enough to see that there's more to it than what we're just so micro-focused on.
That's true. That's true. To be able to see the past very clearly, and to let go of the things that don't matter, and to be able to project those into the future with the things that we have going, and the things that we hope for with our families and that we desire professionally. It's effective if you can. That forgiveness one. Boy, if there is one of them that when I work with companies or teams, if there is one of those things, one of those 7 principles that has more bearing on people's lives, on their relationships, on their professional production, it's that one. I used to think that forgiveness was like a knighthood, something I would bestow upon some lucky person that, came crying and begging me to forgive them. Then maybe I would if I felt like it and if I felt they deserved it. But, 30 years of research, and I can't find one expert or one book to tell me for one person to forgive another person, that person has to deserve it or to ask for it or to even be aware that it's happening. Now, I'm not talking about the spiritual forgiveness. I'm talking about that from one person to another person. And I have found that forgiveness, it is not only a spiritual commandment, it is a personal decision. It's not an emotion. We treat it like an emotion, which is why it drags us around like a dog on a leash. But you can actually choose to forgive. And there's so many times, I don't know if you're like me, but so many times in our lives that we have, been laying awake at night and thinking about that guy and what he said and what we said and what we would have said if we'd have thought about it for a minute and what we will say when he walks around the corner tomorrow. And this guy's across town sleeping peacefully, unaware that we're even bent out of shape. And so whose life is it ruining? And sometimes I talk about this and people say, oh, what? So they're just going to get away with it? And nobody's getting away with anything. You really have to discern the difference in forgiveness and trust, because that's two different things. Forgiveness is for us. Trust is about them. Remember, they don't even have to know they've been forgiven. They don't have to deserve it. They don't have to ask for it. And so forgiveness is about the past. It's about us doing away with the past so we don't drag it along with us. Trust is about the future. Do you forgive somebody who steals from you? Sure. Do you continue to do business with them? Probably not. Do you forgive somebody who lies to you? Yeah. Do you continue to believe everything they say? No. And so, forgiveness is about us. And we can also forgive ourselves. If you've been forgiven, to drag around the things that you have done. I don't know about you, me, all the people who have offended me in my life, nobody has ever disappointed me as much as I have disappointed me. And I couldn't even lie about it. I knew everything I'd done. Right. And so how do you get away from that? Well, you really can lay down the sticks and whip you've been beating yourself over the back and neck and shoulders with. You can lay those down and forgive yourself and move on. And, whether you are holding a grudge against yourself or holding a grudge against another person, it will affect your life in a dramatic way. You may not understand what is happening, and other people may not understand what is happening. But I want to tell you something. Just like a dog can sense fear in people, people can sense bitterness in other people. And they don't always know what they're seeing, but they don't do business with it. And they don't stay married to it forever. They don't date it again. And so that bitterness is something that you do have control over. I can change that in my life. I can let that go.
Mm-hmm. That is incredible insight about forgiveness. If we stop swimming in a pond, if we stop moving, we're going to sink. And we're swimming all the time with a concrete cinder block tied to our leg until we cut it loose. And that's what forgiveness lets us do.
That's right.
Andy, that is so brilliant. I can't believe how fast time with you goes. I wish we had 15 episodes of the Action Catalyst to share with our listeners. Can I just say from my heart, thank you.
Call back anytime you want.
Well, the impact that you've had on so many and personally on me, I'm so inspired when I think about Joshua Chamberlain. Anytime I need a little extra courage when I'm out of ammo, it's such a fantastic story. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. Hey, we've got a brand new thing besides the book coming out. We've got The Bottom of the Pool that's coming out. And we've got a brand new website that is just unbelievable. A lot of people are participating in it, and it's called Wisdom Harbor. And that's Wisdom, Harbour.
British style.
There's a U in it. It's not me, it's you. So it's ours, not mine. It's ours.
I love it.
Yeah, wisdomharbor.com. And there's tons of docs in there that you can visit and be a part of. It's very cool.
Well, I plan to be on that today. and that's thanks to you. Andy, thank you so much for being part of Action Catalyst, for being the encourager you are and the liver of life that you are.
Thank you, Dan. Honored to be with you.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. To stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast and Twitter at Catalyst_Action. Thanks for listening.